Welcome to the Docker Jenkins integration demo. In this demo, we'll see how can we run or create Docker images and run Docker containers within Jenkins itself. So before I get start the demo, let's see what do we need on Jenkins side and on Docker side. So on Docker side, so we need a server where Docker is running, right? So we need to install Docker and start Docker. Install and start Docker. And once that is done, for this demo I'm gonna install and start Docker within the same server where this Jenkins is present, but it could be possible you can install and run Docker on some other system and then provide the URL. On Jenkins side, we need to configure a lot of things on Jenkins side. So on Jenkins side, we need to install Docker Jenkins plugin. Once that is done, we need to configure Docker agent. Once that is done, create a pipeline project. Docker, okay, create a pipeline project, and then in that we can supply the Docker script where we will take out the code from Git repository and then create Docker image, and then we will run that Docker image, Docker container of that particular image. So this is the process, right? And on our Git repo, we need a Docker file. So what is Docker file? So Docker file has set of commands which will ask Docker to create images and install applications on it. So Docker is nothing. So if you heard of virtual machines, so virtual machines works on an virtualization level and Docker works on a containership model. So what you can do with Docker, so let's say I want to test something related to automation. So on a normal way, what I have to do, I have to install all the applications related to automation such as Chrome, such as Chrome driver on my system, but I don't want to do that because I will be doing testing for some particular time and then I may not need that. So in those cases, what you can do, you can actually create a Docker image which will have these two application, Chrome and Chrome driver, and then you can just run the container based on your demand. So what if you want to run only Chrome, you can run the Chrome container. If you want only want to run Chrome driver, you can run Chrome driver container. So Docker helps you to run a specific application without the need to install it on your system. So Docker file actually creates that image, and then you can use Docker commands to build images, and then once the images are built, you can use Docker commands to run container from that particular image. So we'll see the whole process now. So first of all, for starting Docker, installing and starting Docker, let's go on a server. I have a Linux server. Here, you need to first of all start the, install the Docker. So the installation Docker is pretty simple. Sudo apt get install docker.io. Okay. I have already installed it, but if you haven't installed it, it will actually install the Docker IO image, Docker IO application in your system. Now, once that is done, we need to start it, and we can start this Docker. So first of all, before we start, let's see Docker version by see Docker is installed or not via Docker version command. Okay, so Docker is there. The version is 19.03.6. Okay, Now this is our the Docker server URL for this particular localhost. But now it is not connected because we haven't started the Docker system yet. So to start the Docker system, we need to write sudo systemctl start Docker. Okay, let's see the status if it is started or not. Started, right? You can see started Docker application container engine. Okay, so once it is started, now we have installed Docker and started Docker. Let's go back to Jenkins now. Do some Jenkins related tasks. So we need what we need to do on Jenkins. We need to install Docker Jenkins plugin. Then we need to configure Docker agent to run on Jenkins. Then we need to create pipeline. And in pipeline, we need to mention the pipeline script with our Git repo. And on that Git repo, we already have Docker file. So let's perform Jenkins related tasks. First of all, let's go in manage and manage plugins and install the required plugin. So I'll go in available section and search for Docker. Under Docker, you need to install this one. Integrates Jenkins with Docker. If you install this, all the other Docker plugin will automatically install itself. So let's click on this and install without restart. Okay, so Docker plugin is getting installed. Okay, loading plugin extension is installed. So now the first task is done. We have installed Docker Jenkins integration plugin. Let's verify under installed section. Okay, Docker plugin is installed. Now we need to configure Docker agent. So for that, go in manage Jenkins and then go in configure system. And now search for cloud, right? Now click on this separate configuration page. And here you need to add a new cloud. So here we will select Docker. This will be only available once you have Docker plugin installed. Now here we need to provide the Docker host URL. So when you click on cloud details, here you need to provide Docker host URL. Usually in production environments or maybe in testing environment also, the Docker is actually present on a different host where the Jenkins is. But for this particular demo, since we have only one server, I have installed the Docker as well as the Jenkins on the same server. So as we saw in Docker version command, the host URI is this unix/var.run/docker.sock. So once we have done that, because it is on local server, it doesn't require any credential. If it is on some third-party server or the server where it is not related in the same network, then you may need to provide the credentials also. So let's test connection. Okay, so it is successful. We see that the version is same 19.003.6. Let's save it. So Docker agent is configured now. So the next step is creating a pipeline project and then providing the pipeline script to create a Docker image and run Docker container. So for that, let's create a pipeline project. Click on pipeline. And in here, we need to provide our pipeline script. If you remember, in the demo of pipeline project, we actually use the demo script, like this one. But then here, if you see, there is no command which can create Docker image or which can run Docker container. So We'll be using the script which we saw in the PPT demo. So this is the script. So in here we are actually checking out our repo, which is this repo. So this repo actually has a Docker file. So if you open this repo, so this repo actually has a Docker file. This is a Docker file. So using this Docker file, a image will be created. So this is a simple Docker file. So from in this Docker file, what we are doing is basically from Ubuntu 14.0.4, we are running some command update system, and then we are installing one Chromium browser, right? So we are actually creating a image or image where we are installing one application from Chromium browser. Now we'll be running this Chromium browser via containers in Docker. Okay, so the Docker file is configured. Now you can see once the code is checked in, then in the stage create Docker image, we are actually running a command docker.build, and we are giving the build you've got Docker image as tag as build number. So whatever will be the build number of this build, that would be the tag of the Docker image. Once that is done, once the Docker image is created, we are actually running the container from the created image. So for that, first of all, we are removing everything, every other containers present in the system. So for that, we are using Docker RM, and here you're finding out the all the Dockers and Docker related processes, and then removing all those processes. And here we are actually running not database, we are running a Chromium container. Okay, so running the container, so we are running container using docker.run command, and here we are running the container Docker image environment build number which we have used here. So in this case, the build number won't be 1. So it's actually running the container which has an image Docker image tag 1. Okay, in case of any error, we are also using the catch and finally. So this is our pipeline script for creating a Docker image and then running the Chromium container on that particular Docker image. So let's save it and try to run this project. Okay, I'll click on build now. Okay, so if you see, you can see the stages has been created. So first of all, it is checking out. So checked out get repo, it checked out the get repo, then created a Docker image using Docker file, and then ran the Docker container from the created image. So the process is successful. Let's see the logs to understand the process. So in here, first of all, check out the repo. So it fetch the repo. See, last commit is update Docker file. And once that is done, now it is building the Docker image here, if you see, and tagging the build number with it. So we are creating a Docker image and then naming the or tagging it with build number, which is number 1. Once that is done, it is actually installing the Chromium browser right here. Since it is present in the cache, it is installing it from the cache. And now the image is created. If you see this message, image is created. So once the image is created, it is tagged the image as this image 1, Docker image 1. And once that is done, it is clearing out all the other containers. Ran this command and then find out this container and then remove that container. And now it's actually running the application which is present on that container. So it is running the application container engine from the image Docker image 1. Okay, and finally the build is success. So that is how you can actually use Jenkins to run Docker commands, to create Docker images, and to run Docker containers or with for the applications. Thank you for taking this demo.